College football nerds here talking Texas and Clemson in round one of the playoffs. This is another game that we didn't necessarily know we were going to get because we didn't know where Texas is going to fall and if Clemson was going to make it or not. But they're both here and they're playing each other. Got Josh with me. He's going to get nerdy with y'all as well. We have a model that does really well. You should check it out. You can go to collegefootballnerds.com and play with any two teams and match up any two teams and see what that model result will give you. Wanted to let y'all know it's been pretty good this year. One of the better models in the country. So do keep that in mind when we get to the model discussion, which we might get to really quickly. Josh, this game is interesting because I think that, Clemson has struggled this year. They're 0-2 against SEC teams. But each team that they will have faced has been wildly different, both in terms of strengths, really in terms of strengths and weaknesses. I think South Carolina is a much better defensive team than Georgia, and Georgia is probably a good bit better offensive team than South Carolina. Texas is one of those teams that is mercurial, if you will. Offensively, they've shown that they could be really good at times. They can really be stagnant at times, but defensively, they are elite. And this is a far removal from the SMU team that Clemson just played. So if you think about who Texas has been this year and the one good team that Clemson has beaten this year in SMU, they couldn't be more different. So does that spell disaster for Clemson, or is it maybe not so bad?
Yeah, I think, as we always said, the 5 seed was going to get the easiest path because they were going to get the auto bid champion that probably wasn't in the top 12, and that's what Clemson is. I think the history of Clemson as a football team is one of, a team of high talent that's maybe been mediocre in the regular season, turned things up in the playoff. That hasn't necessarily turned out to be true really since like 2018 on the whole. I mean, they had a big win in 2019. But this year in particular, again, we call them like we see them, guys. I'll say ask you to like and subscribe right now because it'll be a very honest discussion. Clemson in our metrics is not the same team they've been in recent years. We mentioned every team in this playoff is top 10 in rush defense, rush offense, pass defense, or pass offense, one of the four, except for Clemson. Their best category is they're 16th in the country in our rush offense metric, which it tells you a little bit why they beat SMU, even though they were down to starting running backs at one point in that game, and I think that let SMU creep in. But outside that, we have them 74th in passing offense, 32nd in passing defense, and 90th in run defense. And that's not good, Daniel. When you're playing Texas, when we talk about Texas's passing game maybe being spotty, they're 27th. When we talk about their offense being spotty, they're 26th. They're second in pass defense. They're 7th in run defense. They are second in scoring defense in our system. The 11th best scoring offense. Clemson is not close. They are not a top 25 scoring offense or scoring defense. And so they are clearly the oddball out in this. Now, you can say they earned their slot according to the format. I'm going to make every Clemson fan mad because it affects them personally. I do not like the format. This is why I didn't think it should be there, because I don't think they're a team that should be in this playoff. In our model, I'm going to go ahead and jump to it, Daniel. Our model has this game 31-13. It has Texas at 6 yards per play, Clemson at 4. It has Texas at 7.3 yards per attempt, Clemson at 4.9 yards per attempt. That's terrible passing. Texas running over 5 yards a carry, Clemson only running for 3.2. That's a dominant set of stats. Okay, that's why the model is as lopsided as it is. For a game that's an 18-point projection, the largest spread, which is still only 11.5. I think, Daniel, the issue is Texas's schedule has sneakily been weak. And they've had a couple strong games on there, but just a couple. Two of them, the couple arguably just being Georgia. The next best maybe being Florida, but Florida was on their third-string quarterback. They were out in multiple starting corners. Kind of a broken team in that game. Sandwich in there is a one-score win over Vandy, a one-score win over, or 20-10 win, I should say, over Arkansas. Even, A&M 17-7 was good, but they couldn't put it away. This is a Texas team that has looked vulnerable versus better defenses. And so my question to you, Daniel, really is Clemson really a better defense? Is Clemson the kind of team that can expose Texas? Or is Texas the kind of team that can expose Clemson as being a team that doesn't belong?
No, I think that Clemson, I've been so high on their defenses for so long that it's easy to me to see a stark difference between who they have been and who they are. And I think they got a little bit of the benefit of the doubt last year, but not this year. They're not the same. I, I do think that Texas has holes in their game, but this is, in my opinion, not the team to test that. Also, we saw in the Clemson game, like Maffa's not been 100% all year. Jay Haynes got hurt in that game, and their offense ground to a halt. Klubnik was out of his mind in the first half, and maybe he shows up out of his mind against Texas in a way that he hasn't been all year. He played above his normal station in the first half against SMU, and that's not an elite defense. Texas is an elite defense. Um, I think this is a bad matchup for Clemson. I don't think Clemson is a terrible team. I think there are some other teams in this field. They beat one of them that they match up with a lot better. But this is a road game against an elite defense. And while I have my issues with Quinn Ewers and I have my issues with the Texas offense, I do think, like you said, it's like we judge them based on historically thinking about playoff teams being top four, but they're not that. But their pass offense is mid-20s, and that's with Ewers hurt for half the year. He's got time to get healthy, and I don't think Jay Haynes is coming back. There's been no official word. I think as of this recording, it's still questionable, but I think he's a big part of that offense. I think these are two teams that are not in opposite ends of the spectrum offensively, but Josh, let me just ask you this. Offensively and defensively, I think Texas is better than Clemson. What do you think?
I think they're just better. I think Clemson has the ability to run well in an ACC that doesn't have enough offenses that are fully balanced to really be able to test teams the way they should. And it's really difficult to evaluate teams because of that. We mentioned that their run stats are really good. Or I say really good. Rushing offense, we have them 23rd. Wow, that just, I think, updated before my eyes. Interestingly, some data must have just processed through in our system. It deals with data live, and I think the Army Navy data was coming through. So it's probably the only game where that last set of data came through. Interesting. But the reality is Notre Dame, who plays halfway an ACC schedule, ends up being the best rushing offense in our system. Right? They're the number one rated rush offense per carry in our model. That may have something a little bit to do with the ACC and defenses and relative offenses and all that stuff. I do believe that. The model has us 31-13. Daniel, I'm taking the model at 31-13. I think that's what this game is. I just think Clemson has made do with Klubnik as an athlete. He can make some throws. He's way too inconsistent. He doesn't process quickly or well. They don't have enough dangerous receivers. Antonio Williams is like their best guy. Wesco's their best guy. More, they're relying on young guys and guys that should be more utility pieces for a team of Clemson's caliber. Texas's weapons in every way, shape, and form are on a different level. The receiving core is on a completely different level. Wingo is their fifth best receiver. Moore is their fourth best receiver. Moore would be by far the best receiver in Clemson's team. The one thing going against Texas is the injuries at the running back position. And I do think Maffa, when healthy, is a better player, but he hasn't been fully healthy. But defensively, Hill and company for Texas is a completely different level than anything Clemson's played but Georgia, and they could not move the ball at all versus Georgia. I also agree with you. I think with Ewers just being banged up, part of it an ankle injury. Look, Daniel, when you're banged up and your ankle's hurt, it really affects a lot of quarterbacks that like to drive the football, especially in RPOs. I think he could look like a better quarterback. We call him like we see him. I got to call this one like I see it. I think Clemson shouldn't be here. I just don't. I think they're going to get outclassed. I think there's a lot of talk about SMU versus Alabama. That was really the wrong discussion because I think if SMU played Alabama, it's almost a toss-up. I was ready to pick Penn State over Alabama, for all the hype of what they could be. That is a flawed football team. I don't think Clemson could beat South Carolina. And Daniel, I can say that because South Carolina beat Clemson 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Clemson is the team forced in by a bad format. They are playing a much better team than anyone they've played, save maybe Georgia. And I'm not even sure that the Georgia Texas thing isn't a matchup issue. I think Clemson loses this one by a good margin because I don't. Texas's run defense is much better than Georgia's. That is a big difference between the two teams. And if Clemson can't run the ball, I don't understand how they stay in this game. So I could see Texas getting a lead maybe really early. They're great in their script, kind of futzing around, but Clemson not doing anything until late in the game when they turn the ball over trying to score. And Texas makes this, as I said, 31-13. And probably what is going to be mostly a low-scoring, boring game. But I could see this being like 17-0 in mid-third quarter and going to 31-13 when Clemson's in desperation catch-up mode.
I've got 24-10. I think that, one, the health of Quinn Ewers, him getting some time off to rest, I think is big. And I also think that I could actually see Texas having issues with Arizona State. But the one thing I love about Sark is he puts together a script, he puts together a plan. Give me Texas with a lot of time to prepare over most teams in the field. We'll see how that plays out week to week in the playoffs. But in this first game, I like Texas 24-10. I still don't love their offense, but I love them in this game. 24-10. Josh, give me a parting shot and we'll wrap it up.
I think my parting shot on this is there is a possibility that Clemson manages to get in Texas's head. Now, an away game at Texas is hugely beneficial. But they can get in Texas's head and then try to, if they can disrupt Ewers and get him off his game, he can be inconsistent. Ewers is not a great deep ball thrower. It took us a long time, I think, for Texas fans to come around to our analysis of them. I do think we've been fair with Texas. We've been high on them when we need to be high on them. This is a really talented football team that is weirdly flawed. I feel like should be better than they are. And I cannot help but think it's a really great set of offensive players that are propping up Ewers more than Ewers being a good player propping up the rest. I think people have come around to my opinion on that, which has been going on for about 2 to 3 years. But it took him a long time to do so. He was a COVID eval. We talked a lot. There's a few guys. Drew Aller's another one. Klubnik is kind of one. The guys that came about in that COVID era did not go to camps and get evaluated the way other kids were. And Ewers is squarely on that as an early enrollee. Just didn't have a lot of tape, and I think he was a missed at value in the recruiting cycle. But I think he's good enough to win this game. I think the question if you're a Texas fan is, do you see a healthier Ewers that shows the kind of team you think you need to be? Or is this another one of those Arkansas-type games, Vandy-type games, where for all the explosion, A&M, where it looks like you're more or less dominating in play-to-play, you can't create separation on the scoreboard? Because ultimately, Daniel, I think that's their problem. Is for all the yards, all the points, all the explosion, all the yards, all the explosion. They don't generate points. They slow down in the red zone. The RPO goes away. And that is going to get them beat in this playoff. They are the team with the best odds to win for a reason because they are probably the most talented. Maybe Ohio State has an argument, but Ohio State with injuries and other issues is not a balanced team right now. But if they can't find a way to be more efficient in scoring in key moments, they're going to trip up and they're going to lose to a team they shouldn't lose to.
All right, y'all. Let us know in the comments what you think about this game and who's going to win. And let us know if we're way off base about Clemson. But also, I want you to talk or think about and comment about the concept of Texas being able to prepare this week for Clemson or a little bit of extra time versus Texas week to week should they win this game. I think it's possible that Arizona State gives them the game if they win this one. All right, y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with this one and for all week if you've watched all 4 of these previews. It's been a lot of fun. I look forward to talking to you next week as well. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week. God bless.